بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. I intend to study and teach, to take and give reminders, benefit and assistance to, and to inspire myself and others to hold fast to the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to call to guidance and direct to goodness, seeking the countenance of Allah, His pleasure, nearness and reward. Okay, so we will start off with just a little bit of a recap of yesterday. So I know that there's some people that have come in today and they were not here yesterday, but don't worry, as in terms of we haven't gone through that much. So as in terms of and the idea is that at the start of each session we will be doing a quick recap over what we covered yesterday, and we are just reminding ourselves that these are just little snippets that we can use on a daily basis with regards to our recitation on a regular basis. So the first thing is that if anyone's here that was not here yesterday, that you are expected to bring in a notebook and a pen to write down any Tajweed rules or any work that I give you during these sessions. And then the guider, or we're going to be going through the alphabet in the initial bit. You're not expected to have a guider. If you do have one, then that's fine. It's good for your practice. There's no specific one. I'll just be choosing examples from this one. But again, all guiders are exactly the same. It's just this one that I've got at home. So it's not like I'm saying that this one is better than any other. It's just what's convenient for me specifically. So as in terms of when we're practicing, we're using the concepts or the Tajweed rules or the way that we're meant to be pronouncing in everything, and also we give ourselves a few minutes a day where we just practice over what's been covered in this session. So I went through 4 letters yesterday, and that was the alif, the ba, the ta, and the tha. Okay, so we went through 4 letters. Now there's a bit that says chat where I'd like some people to be chatting and to give me some kind of answers. So when I'm asking you a question, the idea is that we just try and make it semi-interactive, so it's not just me just speaking to you guys, but can anyone tell me if they can remember anything specific about this letter? It's an easy one. We emphasized it a lot yesterday. So what was specific about this letter that we need to remember? And that's a common mistake. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so those of you that are writing that you need to stick your tongue out. So remember, this is the letter where you just slightly, just with the tip of your tongue, just sticking out. So you would read it as tha, tha. Okay, also, what I didn't mention yesterday is that these 3 letters, I kind of mentioned it, but just to give it a little bit more emphasis, that you should be smiling. So there should be this case of saying ba, da, tha. So it's a smile. Okay, so it's important that you remember this, because when we go through the full mouth letters, sometimes what happens is that with certain letters, like for example, I've heard many students say this letter as ba. Okay, so it's not ba, it's ba, ba. So remember, when you're sounding it out with the voweling, it's always with a smile. Okay, so none of these letters, these 4 letters, are heavy. So it's always with a smile, unless it is a heavy letter. Okay, so we're just going to repeat them. So alif, ba, da, tha. Okay, so remember, you should be practicing it behind your screens. I can't see many of you, so as in I'm assuming that you're reading it with me. Don't just let me say it. Say it also out loud. No one can hear you, remember, apart from those that are around you. So alif, ba, da, tha. Alif, ba, da, tha. Okay, so remember, it's with a smile, these 3 letters, and the alif is really an at sound. okay, but the name of the letter is called alif. When we're pronouncing it, okay, so it would normally look like that. It would be like a sound, nice and sharp, nice and clear. So remember how we said that we open our mouths fully, we don't lower it down like a sad face. It's always open. So it's like a, ba, da, tha. Okay, so nice and open. Okay, so not a, ba, da. That's wrong because you're going downwards. Okay, so remember, nice and open and positive and happy. That's how these letters are meant to be. Okay, so we're going to go through the next letters. Okay, so we've done alif, ba, da, tha. The next is jim, ha, kha. Okay, let's just emphasize that. Okay, so nice and clearly then, so it's jim. So the jim, again, jim is the name of the letter. When we're sounding it out, we say it as ja. Okay, so, but for now, we're just practicing with the letters as in terms of how you would do normally as a child. So it would be jim, and then this one is ha, and that one is kha. So jim, ha, kha. Jim, ha, kha. Jim, ha, kha. Jim, ha, kha. Okay, so with the jim, as we were saying, that if we were going to sound it out, really all we're thinking about is the middle of our tongue, just staying kind of semi in the middle, nice and flat, and just moving up. So it's ja, ja. And it should be quite strong. So when you're saying ja, ju, ji, and really there isn't, you shouldn't really get this one wrong. I've never really heard many students getting this one wrong. It's very simple. It's like a jat sound, like jug, or like jack, and so forth. It's just the same as a J, okay? With the ha, now this is one of the hardest letters in the Arabic language, because you need to remember to release as much air as possible. Okay, so a common way of practicing it is for you to put your hand in front of your mouth and try and feel lots of air on your hand. Okay, so it's like ha, ha. Okay, and there should be a slight crisp to it. Okay, so it should be feeling like as if, I normally describe it like as if it's like a python. Okay, so you know the snake, and if it was to open its mouth out and make that hissing sound, that's normally how I relate it to. But obviously everyone has their own way. So think of it as like, and really why this the python analogy kind of like works is because that is really a snake that opens its full mouth and releases what it needs to. And the same thing with us when we're saying ha. Okay, we're opening out our mouth. So we're saying ha, ha, ha. Okay, so if you can hear that air is able to release out for quite a little bit. So I'm able to say ha. Okay, so that's with the fatha. That's with the line at the top. If I was to do it with the kasra, the line at the bottom, I would say it as he. So you can still hear that air, and that's what you should be able to. So you're saying ha, he, and then hu. Ha, he, hu. Okay, so remember this one is the one with lots of air. Okay, so it's H, but it's the one with lots of air. Okay, so normally you're now saying that you can either put your hand in front. I know there's some scholars, so there's some scholars that use the glass method. So you would put like a glass in front of you and see whether you can get as much steam on that glass as possible. Okay, so naturally you won't be able to have a glass with you on the all the time, but as in terms of, that's why I normally use the hand thing. But if you want to use a glass, then that's something you can do also. Okay, so remember, lots of air. The next one is kha. Okay, so kha, ha. So if you notice that there's really a scratch, a kind of a gargle sound was this one. And normally, if you were going to give it a transliteration, it'd be like K, H, okay? So it'd be like ha. Okay, so really you should be able to gargle it up and it's right at the top of your throat. Okay, so this one is from the top of the throat. Top of throat. Okay. So right from the top of the throat. So ha, ha. Okay, so for those that speak Urdu, the language, this one is not that hard because it's kind of like ha, khargosh, and so it's a similar to that. Okay, but why these are harder, these throat letters specifically for anyone that speaks English? I know there are some individuals in here that are international students. So as in terms of with your own language, you would know, but as in, and hopefully you can relate to it. But as in with English, we would never really use our throat. When we're speaking English, we just use our mouth. So it is a little bit harder for us to kind of think, okay, I've got to pronounce a letter from my throat now, and that's why people that are from England find it harder. So we've got ha, ha, lots of air, ha, and then you've got ha, ha. So again, jim, ha, ha, jim, ha, ha. Can anyone tell me where they think the ha is pronounced from? Where do you think the ha is pronounced from? So I've said the ha is pronounced from the top of the throat. Can anyone think where the ha would be pronounced from? Yep, from the middle of the throat. Thank you. Okay, so when we're talking about our throat, you can't really see my throat because obviously with my scarf, but imagine that is your throat. Very basic, very basic. So you would have at the top, and then you'd have a middle, and then you'd have a bottom. Okay, we'll go through these in a little bit more detail as the lessons go on. But for now, what does it mean when we're talking about the top of the throat, the middle of the throat, and the bottom of the throat? Okay, so let's start with the bottom. So if you can just feel your neck, and you should feel your collarbone, and obviously your collarbone looks like, well, it feels like a bit like a curve, right? And so there's a bit in the middle where you would be able to touch because it's softer. Okay, so that's what we're referring to when we're saying bottom of the throat. Okay, so that's what we're referring to, the bottom of the throat. When we're talking about middle of the throat, we're talking about, so we're obviously women, so we don't have a lot like an Adam's apple, but it'd be the equivalent of where that would be. So if you feel your throat, you should feel like a slight bump. And when you're talking, so even when I'm speaking right now, I can feel like a slight vibration. That's the middle of your throat. Okay? And then the top of your throat, you're not really able to feel because it goes further back. But as in terms of, see it as where your tonsils are, and that gargling sound. So as in terms of if you had a sore throat, where you would be, as in drinking that water, and gargling and then releasing out. So that top bit where you know that that's your limit. So imagine that you had salt in your water and you were just going to gargle. You don't want to swallow it, and then that bit is literally where your tonsils would be, and just slightly further down. And that's what we're referring to when we're saying the top of the throat. Okay, so with that ha, we are trying to get it to have that slight gargle sound. So again, ha, ha, and let it release for a little bit. You should be able to say, okay? So say ha, then hu, and he. Again, ha, hu, he. One more time, ha, hu, he. Okay, we'll do the same thing for the ha. So we say ha, ha, and then hu, hu, and he. Again, ha, ha, hu, and he. And we do it the same with the jim now. So say ja, ju, ji. Nice and easy. Ja, ju, ji. Okay, so let's go from the start now. Just going to slightly put it at the top. So alif, ba, da, with a smile. Da, tha, with a smile and sticking your tongue out. Tha, jim, ha, ho. Alif, ba, da, tha, jim, ha, ho. And one last time. Alif, ba, da, tha, jim, ha, ho. Okay, and that's your letters for today. Okay, remember we said that we're just going to take small snippets. Okay, and time goes very fast in these sessions. Before I forget, okay, so for today's session, I'm actually recording it because I've had a lot of messages asking whether the sessions can be recorded. So I've recorded it. Those of you that have messaged me asking if they can be added into the group, I'll try and figure out some way of getting this recording from Zoom into a WhatsApp thing, if not, or whether it be through email. So if you haven't messaged me or the Instagram account or the Facebook account, then please do so we can add you into that group, because I know that some of you are back at work or you're having to work certain hours and so forth, so you might be missing the sessions. So that is an option for you. Okay, so going into the Tajweed rule. So what was the Tajweed rule that we covered yesterday? Can anyone tell me what was the rule called? Yeah, Noon Mushadda, and what else? So there was Noon Mushadda and another letter. Yeah, Mim Mushadda, thank you. Okay, so we've got Noon Mushadda and we've got Mim Mushadda. So what does that mean? So remember what Mushadda, we said, Mushadda basically means, what does it mean? Somebody writing it for me? A letter with a shadda, yeah. Okay, so it's basically a letter with a shadda. And what is a shadda? What does it look like? It's basically a little W. Okay, so whenever you see a little W, you know that's a shadda. And if a letter contains that, it's called mushadda. Okay, so that's the subject. And so when we're talking about noon mushadda and mim mushadda, we're talking about a noon with a shadda on it, a mim with a shadda on it. Okay, nice and easy. So a noon with a shadda on it, a mim with a shadda on it. Okay, and what does that mean? How do we pronounce it? Yeah, thank you. So you would pronounce it with gunna. And what does gunna mean? So this is a term that we're going to be using a lot in Tajweed. So it's a nasalization. So when we're talking about nasalization, we're talking about the sound that comes from above the nose. Okay, so well done for those that are writing it. It's the sound that comes from above the nose, and it's that sound. Okay, so in its practicality, we would be reading this as anna, anna. So basically, we're holding on to this letter a little bit longer, enough for that sound to come and release out. Okay, so remember, we say that it's holding for 2 seconds, but it's really meant to be a natural thing. So eventually you'll get to a point where you're not even really counting it. It just becomes a natural thing. So it's anna, amma. And remember how we said that at this point, because you're learning, it's fine for you to exaggerate. So even if it's longer than 2 seconds at this point, while you're practicing, that's absolutely fine. Okay, because eventually it'll start to become a norm for you, and then you won't even realize that you're paying attention to it. Okay, it just becomes part of your recitation. Okay, so the rule for yesterday was noon mushadda and mim mushadda. That basically whenever you see a noon with a shadda on it or a mim with a shadda on it, we pronounce it with gunna. And gunna is the nasalization or the sound that comes from above the nose. So this would be anna, this would be amma. Okay, and we use the surah, we use Surah Nas as our example yesterday. Can anyone tell me how many noon mushaddas there are in Surah Nas? Yeah, well done, guys. Those of you are quick. So there were 7 in Surah Nas. So I'm just going to read it with you. I'm not going to bring it up because we're going to go through another surah today, even though time's going fast. Okay, so let's just read it together. If you have a Quran, so when you come into these sessions, remember how we said that bring a notebook and a pen. If you're praying and you're able to, then bring a Quran also, because when we're going through the session, I'll put up a surah, but as in, it's good for you to also just have a Quran. Imagine I randomly decide to choose another surah. It's always good to have it at hand. Okay, so Surah Nas, we're just going to read together. So, A'udhu billahi من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay, so I'm not going to go through it too slow because that's not what we're focusing on now. I just need you to pay attention to the noon mushaddas. Okay, and I'll use my fingers to remind you where they are. So, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. That was your first one. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. So remember, in that last ayah, there are 2. Okay, there's jinnati, and then there's also wannas. Now the group that we're creating, that is in terms of the Tajweed group, I will send a recording in there also of this surah. Okay, because I know some of you guys were messaging me saying, can I send a recording of me reciting and so forth, but naturally I won't be able to listen to you guys on a daily basis. But if you want to, you can, you're welcome to do so. You just got to be patient. If I don't have the time to listen to and give you feedback, then you just have to forgive me, inshallah. But I'm hoping that I can send in a recording of myself reciting the surah. To be honest, you can find it all on YouTube, you can find it all over the internet, recitations of these surahs, and you're just paying attention to how they're reciting, and their recitation will be better. I'll just read it really slowly for those that will benefit from it, because I know previously people have requested that. So that was from the rule from yesterday. Now I'm just going to bring up the Surah Falak, and I want you to just pay attention to how we're reciting it. Okay, so let me find it. Okay, so we're going to go through just paying attention to certain sounds when we're reciting. Okay, so we're going to go through the rule in a little bit more detail tomorrow with regards to the rule of qalqala, but I want you to just hear it for today. Okay, so Bismillah, or rather we start with A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So notice how I'm pronouncing those has. Again, Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Okay, so Rah and Him. Okay, then it continues. قل أعوذ برب الفلق. Okay, so notice how I'm saying فلق. Again, قل أعوذ برب الفلق. قل أعوذ برب الفلق. من شر ما خلق. So again, we've got that ha, so nice and scratchy from the top of the throat. من شر ما خلق. خلق. So notice that I'm bouncing on that qaf. Going on to the third ayah. ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب. Okay, so again, there's a bounce at the end of the ayah number 3. ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب. ومن شر النفاثات في العقد. So notice here that the letter tha, alif ba ta tha, comes into this in this surah, in this ayah. So remember to stick out your tongue. ومن شر النفاثات في العقد. So the bounce again at the end. And then the last ayah, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدَ. So we've got those has again, nice and airy, as much air as you can release. Okay, so remember, the focus here, don't worry about too much about why I'm bouncing. That's a lesson that we're going to be covering tomorrow, but I just wanted you to hear it. And for today, I just want you to focus on the rule of Noon Mushadda, Mim Mushadda, and then also these letters of the Ha and the Kha. So these two letters are difficult. Now remember that you are not expected to master any of these rules in one day. Okay, so as in when we're talking about Noon Mushadda, Mim Mushadda, it's going to take you time to be able to remember and notice it on a regular basis. But it's just your point of a lesson, as in terms of what you are focusing on for that day. Okay, and then for today, you're focusing on the Ha and the Kha. The Jim you'll be fine with. Okay, so it's more the Ha and the Kha. And then also remembering to stick out your tongue for the letter Tha. Okay, so can someone write down how many rules of Noon Mushadda or Mim Mushadda they can find in this surah? So remember, you're looking for a Noon with a Shadda, or you're looking for a Mim with a Shadda. Okay, when you found it, yeah. Okay, so you found it, yeah. Pixel 2, I don't know who you are, but you need to write your names, guys, so that I can actually refer to you. So if you're writing 1, can you tell me in which ayah you see it? Is it in ayah number 1, ayah number 2, ayah number 3, or ayah number 4, or ayah number 5? Okay. Yeah, most of you have seen it. So it's in ayah number 4, and you can see it when it says وَمِن شَرٍ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. So the sharrin is what we're talking about. Okay, so that is just one Noon Mushadda that you need to remember for this surah. And we will leave it as that, inshallah. That is what we are taking from today. So remember, it's just small snippets. You're just focusing on Noon Mushadda, Mim Mushadda, and then the Ha and the Kha, and the Tha when you're sticking your tongue out. And I will, inshallah, see you tomorrow.